The United Kingdom says a second national lockdown will only be imposed as a last line of defence. The health minister did not rule out the prospect as coronavirus cases surge in the country. Now, he said COVID-19 hospital admissions in the UK are doubling every 8 days.
The national lockdown is the last line of defence. It is, as we saw in the spring, it is the thing that we can do to keep people safe if that's needed. So we're watching vigilantly, but we can see this number of cases accelerating, and we're prepared to do what it takes to both to protect lives and to protect livelihoods, and of course both are so important.
The first lockdown began back in March and was eased in June. COVID-19 cases began to rise again this month. And in the last week, there have been between 3,000 and 4,000 new cases daily. A partial lockdown has come into force in the northeastern England. More than 10 million people are affected, and residents in those areas are banned from socialising with others outside of the household. Ollie Barrett joins us live for more on this. Ollie, lots of speculation over the past few days. Are we any clearer to knowing if a second lockdown is possible?
Well, we are clear from Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, and Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, over the last 2 days as well, that the government wants to avoid another nationwide lockdown if possible. But we are also clear from both those men that the cases are rising in the wrong direction. They're both very concerned about the speed with which the outbreak is picking up again in parts of England. And we therefore have those local lockdown restrictions coming in the northeast of England, in parts of the northwest, in other parts of northern England. We have further restrictions beyond the normal social distancing guidelines that the rest of the country has in place in Scotland, in parts of Scotland, in parts of Wales as well. Cases are rising in places like the British capital, London. Other areas are on the government's watch list too. And so if local restrictions, local lockdowns had to be imposed in much more of the country, you're getting to a point anyway where large swathes of the UK are under a form of lockdown or another. It's reported that what the government is considering, or being urged to consider by scientific advisors, is a form of circuit breaker, a couple of weeks where you would put extra restrictions in place nationwide to try and arrest the spread of COVID-19 in what may or may not be a second wave here in the UK.
Ollie, despite the surge, we have news that more travellers have been exempted from COVID-19 self-isolation rules. That includes people from Singapore and Thailand.
That's right. And what that means is that if you are arriving at an English or Scottish airport from Singapore or Thailand, you do not then need to find a place in the UK to quarantine for 14 days. You can go into the country and go about your business in society like everyone else. The UK looks at countries on an individual basis based on the prevalence of COVID-19, but also based on the reliability of data in those countries, the direction of travel of the COVID-19 outbreak. So countries are being added to that exemption list for quarantine every week. Some are also being taken off. For example, yesterday we had Slovakia being taken off the exemption list while Singapore and Thailand were added to it. Of course, the question then becomes how many travellers from Singapore and Thailand would want to come to the UK while cases are rising here, and when, if they were to return to their home countries, they may face the need to quarantine on the way back. But certainly it does open up the ability for people arriving from Singapore and Thailand to come to the UK without needing to self-isolate for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks for getting us up to speed. Ollie Barrett reporting from London.